聆訊。
Let's resume the hearing. Next member, Mr. Frankie Yik. Thank you, Chairman. Some of my questions might have been answered by the PS before. He could be brief. My understanding of the role of the Bureau is to take a macro angle to look at progress and cost overrun, if any. And as for the details, since you explained that you are from the AO grade and you would ask the Highways Department to follow up, is that right? Is my understanding correct? Yes. My question for you is, did you ever query the serious delay? You said you had those doubts, and also in July 2013 you called meetings to understand the issue and to do follow-up. My question for you is, so you had raised queries. You said after November 2013, after that meeting, you still had your doubts and queries, but you had no way to raise further queries. So was it that you were waiting for different possibilities to surface? First of all, for the MTRCL to confirm that it could recover the delay, or you were waiting for the technical department, meaning the Highways Department, to confirm to the Bureau that the delay could not be recovered, or was it for Lloyds to give you a clear signal before you would be satisfied that indeed the delay could not be recovered? Can you first answer that question? Thank you, Chairman. In the meeting of the 21st of November, MTRCL and ourselves agreed that we would give it 6 months to see whether it could recover the delay. To a certain extent, you can say that we were waiting to see whether within 6 months it could furnish concrete justification that it could or could not recover the delay. And I expected that near the end of those 6 months, the Highways Department would give us advice from the professional angle whether the delay could be recovered. As I said to members, as things developed, whether or not the delay could be recovered was affected by the heavy rain in March 2014. So you actually confirmed, PS, that you were waiting for technical department to give you clear messages as to whether the delay could be recovered. I think the chairman asked this question before, and that is in November 2013, before you had that meeting. You already knew that about the partial opening scenario. In fact, that was already a very clear message. Supposing I were party to the contract, I would not lightly propose an alternative proposal. I, of course, would say it only when I knew that there was a big possibility of not being able to complete the work. Why do you think they would still have the ability to recover the delay? Lloyds had already said that there would be a delay of 10, 11 months, but then you gave them 6 months and there would be very little time for them to recover the delay. So on what basis did you think that they would still have the ability to recover the delay? Mr. Lai, Chairman, perhaps I could make a few points. Number one, in November, for the Bureau, the main concern was still the cross-boundary tunneling works. Secondly, the so-called partial opening of WK terminus. On that day, we did not rule it out, neither did we agree to it. Our question was, if the tunnel was not opened, even if there would be partial opening at WKT, it would not help. So the attention that day was focused on the cross-boundary tunnel. Now, of course, if we were to take a step back, and with hindsight now, in fact, even if WKT was partially or fully opened, there was no impact whatsoever on our awareness on that day. But at least there was this message. I don't know whether that message should be called correct or incorrect. Then the message still was that the terminus could be used. On day one operation, train services could be provided at the terminus. Sorry, please stop the counter. I'd like to ask about the 70,000 to 100,000 cubic meters of granite. How much time would it take to do something about it? Do you know it personally? Chairman, I don't have the information at hand. At that time, or during that period, the message given by the MTRCL was that it could open up more work fronts and deploy more people to increase the production rate, so delay could be recovered. But within how long? How much time would it take? This is a crucial question. As Mr. Yik mentioned, the partial opening scenario of WKT. Now, thinking back, on that day, the message it wanted to give us was that there would be train service at WKT. Even if non-essential works like footbridges for pedestrians might not have been completed, still train services would be provided. The impression MTRCL gave us was like that. So to answer your question, Chairman, whether it could be recovered and by how much, but that was at least what it told us it could do. But as I said, we did not rule out that scenario, neither did we agree to it. We thought that if we had to go for it, there would be a lot of technical issues to be resolved first. But on that day, our main concern was the tunnel, the cross-boundary tunnel, whether it could be commissioned in time. If not, no matter to what extent WKT was ready, it would not help things. Sorry, Mr. Frankie Yip, please continue. Well, Chairman, it doesn't matter because, in fact, that your question is a related one, and this is also what Mr. Michael Tian has always been asking, and that is the large amount of granite. I paid a site visit at that time, and you thought about blasting to deal with it, and if that was the case, then you could expedite it instead of drilling through it, etc. But at that time, you did not have a very specific assessment because it was a built-up area and whether blasting was a feasible way to deal with it. And then you also said that the MTRCL repeatedly said that if you were to admit the delay so early, it would lose its leverage to press its contractors to push forth the project. I don't understand it. I haven't seen the entrustment agreement, but my understanding is that in normal works contracts, there would be penalty clauses. If work is delayed, you could be subject to a daily fine. So the impetus is always there. Is that right? Deputy Chairman. So it's not that if you say there would be a delay, then there would not be any pressure because it would be subject to fines, especially you are talking about such serious delay. Should I understand it that way, Mr. Lai? Chairman. My response is that could be one way of understanding it. But At the meeting on that day, the MTRCL did repeatedly resort to that argument, and that is they said that there was this habit, good or otherwise, in the works sector, and that is if the contractor knows there will be no deadline, it will not work diligently. This is the argument that they advanced. That was a fact. You were satisfied with it, or else you would not have concurred. Let me go back to para 12 of your statement. It says that according to EA2, the MTRCL should do its level best. Now, I'd like to ask for your personal view. Do you think MTRCL has really done its best under EA2? Yes or no? Mr. Lai. Chairman, I'm afraid I cannot make a direct comment or a public comment because, as you know, the government has said that we reserve the right to make claims on the MTRCL. If today I have this open discussion with members, it may affect any legal action that the government might take in the future. But what I can say is, as you can see at the IEP chaired by Justice Hartman and also the IBC set up by the MTRCL, the Independent Board Committee, you could see from the reports of those two and which are tabled for members' information, both reports pointed out the reasons why XRL experienced delay. A lot of them had to do with engineering or technical causes. The MTRCL, in its own report, pointed out that communication within the MTRCL and communication between the MTRCL and the government were problematic. Apart from communication and unforeseeable factors which may affect different works projects, and apart from those, whether there were other factors, when we consider how we should protect the legal rights of the government, we'll certainly carefully consider all these factors. In para 11, it is mentioned that Lloyd's has its own duties and it has been providing reports to explain to the Bureau and the department that there was delay. Now, I don't know whether you are in a position to answer this question. I'm asking for your personal view. Do you think Lloyd's has discharged its role? Mr. Lai, Chairman. I think what Mr. Frankie Yik is asking is about the MTRCL's M&V consultant. That company is Jacobs China. Yes, Jacobs. And because of the reason I stated, I should not comment too much here. But I also know that when the Highways Department discharges its duties, apart from making reference to the views from Jacobs China, the department also makes use of its own professional knowledge to make judgments. Chairman, I have one more question.
If I remember correctly, the commissioning date was supposed to be August 2015 according to the original contract. Later on, it was amended to end of 2015. In March, the explanation was a bit tricky. It was said that there could be commissioning in 2015, but it would require 6 to 9 months' time for the purpose of testing. So you talked about giving the benefit of doubt. So were you sort of leaving behind room to indicate that there was a reservation as to whether it could be completed? Mr. Lai. On the 22nd of November 2013, the government made a statement to the RSC. It represented the government, including the THB, the Highways Department, as well as the MTRC's view. There was a meeting on the 21st of November. It was agreed that, first of all, 6 more months should be given to the MTRCL to try to recover the delay, to see if it could be done. In the interim, if there was an indication to give up at too early a stage, then contractors may slow down. They would not be asserting themselves so much. So it was on the basis of such a consideration that this was decided. But then, as I have stated in my opening remarks, at that time, the government could not entirely rule out the possibility of commissioning by 2015. Otherwise, on the 22nd of that month, we would certainly not have said what we did say on that meeting. At that meeting, you talked about the government's experts panel report. Did you disagree with the findings of that IEP's report? Mr. Chairman, are you referring to Judge Hartman's report? Yes. For the factual parts, we do not disagree. Next, Mr. Chen Kem-lim. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just now, Mr. Frankie Yik referred to the Lois being the MMV, and then the PS referred to Jacobs. I just want to give an opportunity to the PS to clarify. For Jacobs, I think it was engaged by the Highways Department, right? For Jacobs, is the MMV consultant for the Highways Department. If I may supplement, for Lois. For Lois, it was in 2008. Before the commencement of the project, the Highways Department engaged Lois to design a monitoring mechanism. For the progress, for the monitoring of the progress, the MMV role is played by Jacobs. Yes, I just want to clarify what he mentioned. For Lois, in the beginning, Lois was of the view that when it comes to the project management of such items, it is robust and is well known to be capable. Now, Permanent Secretary, for the monitoring of the project management work of the MTRCL, would you adopt a more relaxed approach as a result of Lois' view, thinking that MTRCL would not have any problems? Another point is that the Highways Department engaged Jacobs. The financial, technical progress of the projects will all be monitored, and the Highways Department has got many engineers overseeing the project. So would you hold the view that even for your consultant to have committed the same mistake of the lawyers that is taken for granted. And therefore, there might have been some omissions or negligence in the monitoring work. Mr. Lai, thank you, Mr. Chen, for your question. As far as I know, my observation is I don't think the Highways Department felt that MTRCL has had a good proven track record and therefore has been less than vigorous in the monitoring work. I don't think so. But still, we have to come back to the basic point. There is the entrustment agreement. Given such an arrangement, the role of the Highways Department is indeed that of check the checker. If we expect the Highways Department to be aware of each and every detail of the project, I'm afraid it's not possible. And this is not the design, the intention of the original design. Well, to be frank, just in terms of manpower for the MTRCL, I think they have at least deployed 800 officers to deal with the project. For the Highways Department, for the manpower deployed, it is over 10 but less than 20, but not including the MMV. No, but of course the MMV plays an extra role, but still for the project manager of the EA, namely the MTRCL, it has in possession the largest amount of information and also the timely information. It isn't a matter of whether they have given the information to the Highways Department or not, or whether they have given information to the MMV. This is because according to the agreement, MTRCL has the responsibility to provide it. We have got so much information. For the MMV, my understanding is that MMV has got a team of another 20 plus officers. It will be difficult to have both teams to be aware of the details to the same extent at all times. So it is a matter of adopting a risk-based approach. Of course, in the future, when we have similar entrustment agreements or similar arrangements, as to whether there is a way to make sure that the mechanism will be better. I agree that we need to take another look. Now, today, you are looking into this matter. In particular, you want to know about the work of the department. Please try to bear in mind the design of the original mechanism. I think under the original mechanism, I think they have already done their best. In the future, as to whether there is a need to improve the mechanism, if we have something similar, we agree that it warrants a detailed look. Mr. Chairman, the PS has said that to be fully aware of the progress of the entire project would not be possible if someone is an outsider. Now, when it comes to the monitoring, I think the purpose is to be aware the progress, to understand the progress, and to be aware of the difficulties so as to help with the coordination, so as to facilitate the earlier completion. In paragraph 13 of the statement, it is said that in the event of any errors or omissions by the MTRCL, which constitutes breaches of the Pt2 by the MTRCL, and as a result of which the re-execution of the entrustment activities is required, the MTRCL shall, if required by the government, at its own cost, re-execute such EAs to the reasonable satisfaction of the government. Now, if required by the government, what sort of a mechanism are you referring to, and through what channel can you put forward such a request? And from your previous experience, do you think that your request has been taken up and implemented by the MTRCL? Mr. Chairman, first of all, my understanding is that in the past, the government has not invoked such a clause to request the MTRCL to re-execute the entrustment activities at its own cost to the reasonable satisfaction of the government. My understanding is that the government has not previously exercised such a power to put forward such a request. For the XRL project, for the delay and other issues, the government's rights at law, as I have said clearly, we are aware of them, and we reserve the right to deal with the matter through a legal means. Mr. Chairman, in the past, the government has never made the requests referred to in paragraph 13. But then we now know that it is a major problem. It isn't just a minor error or omission in a project. Now this is a major issue. So it shows that the monitoring mechanism that we've been adopting all the time is flawed. And we are not able to discover such a major problem. And we haven't put forward the request to re-execute in time. Do you think that this is a problem? Mr. Lai. Mr. Chairman. In the future, over this issue, we may take legal action with the MTRCL. So it will not be right for me to make a public comment as to the meaning of certain clauses and what we will do, what we are doing, and what we won't do, because I don't want to affect the government's interest in future legal actions. I just want to say that in paragraph 13, what is said here is that if the MTR has committed an error or has any omissions, and if as a result of such, the entrustment activities have to be re-executed.
This is required.
So it refers to the re-execution of certain activities, and then this clause will come into relevance. In the future, if we need to follow up anything with the MTRCL, this particular clause and other clauses, whether they are relevant, I'm afraid I cannot make a public comment. Of course, I'll be careful. I won't touch upon anything that would involve legal disputes. But then, P.S., in your statement, you have made it clear in this in this paragraph. Therefore, I need to clarify with you. At first, I had wanted to ask what is meant by any errors or omissions, because it is a matter of responsibilities. It may be the technical responsibility of the MTRCL, or it may be something which is objective, or it may be something wrong with our monitoring. So I have to ask, in relation to any errors or omissions, how do you understand the definitions?
I want to know about this. As the PS said, we may have other projects to monitor in the future, and I'd like to know how we can do a better job. I think we need to delineate this clearly. What I'm trying to ask is, in this project, how can we do better? And to do that, we need to know the root causes of the problems. Is it a matter of supervision? Or is it that there was a difference in understanding with the MTRCL? And Chairman, just now, we mentioned that there was a big amount of granite under WKT. And also, the TBM was damaged. All that caused delay. But then, this should have been looked into beforehand. You should have known this. And then we used a top-bottom approach to build this terminus. Is it a technical problem? Would the M&V consultant already know it beforehand? Would he know that there would be time and cost that would be required? So I'd like to know whether the government were aware of all these. Mr. Lai. Chairman, regarding individual units, especially the MTRCL or our M&V consultant and their performances, and whether their performance caused delay of the project, or were there unforeseeable engineering problems that were causing the delay. I think, Chairman, I have to repeat that I'm not in a position to make comments because there might be legal proceedings in the future. If you look at information that has been made public, including what the Highways Department did in May last year, the very detailed paper furnished, and also the report of the independent expert panel chaired by Justice Hartman, and also the independent board committee's report, those reports had one thing in common, and that is many objective engineering factors which were unforeseen led to technical problems and also delays. This also explained why some DRMs were effective and some less effective. They also mentioned that within the company and also between the company and the government, there were communication issues. Apart from communication, are there other problems? When we study how we should protect the legal interests of the government, we will cautiously look at these. We're talking about those three reports. I don't think they only mentioned unforeseeable factors. They also mentioned many man-made factors or human factors. Next, Ms. Claudia Mo. Thank you, Chairman. If the government would really take the MTR to court, it would be very strange. Indeed, it would be ridiculous because the government is the major shareholder of MTRCL, so the government will be taking itself to court. Of course, the MTRCL is also a listed company. I'd like to also refer to para 13. You said that if there is reasonable suspicion that there will be continued material or persistent breach of any of the MTRCL's material obligations under the EA2, the government shall be entitled to verify it. Now, what do you mean by reasonably suspects? So many things happened. As the chairman said, there are human factors. Today, you represent the government when you speak. Do you see any reasonable suspicions? That's the first question. Mr. Lai, do you have reasonable suspicions? Chairman, when members read my written statement, please do not only look at para 13 in isolation. Para 12, para 13, para 14, para 15. These paragraphs describe the liabilities of MTRCL as the project manager. We should not just read para 13 in isolation. Para 13 states my understanding of a special situation. It is not just about errors or omissions. There is a causal link here. What is the result? And that is, when it amounts to a breaching of the agreement so that the entrustment activities had to be redone. So para 13 is about my understanding of a special situation, and that is the entrustment activities had to be redone. Or, in English, a result of which the re-execution of the entrustment activities is required. Therefore, para 13 is not about activating this clause whenever there are errors or omissions. In fact, paras 12, 14, and 15 also mention the responsibilities and liabilities of MTRCL in the entire project. Thank you, Chairman. I won't grill you further. You mentioned, and the words you used were check the checker. But then, on the other hand, you said it is not possible for you to have a full grasp of the entire situation because there are just a dozen people at the Highways Department and then there are hundreds at the MTRCL. But we are not talking about a physical fight. We are not in a numbers game. You have to have a macro angle to supervise the project. You must be in a position to see the entire picture. So I think you are contradicting yourself. And with regard to construction risk management, at the beginning, it was proposed by Lloyds. And you also said that thinking back, if you could have given a better account, you said you knew about it before May 2013, and that is about the granite problem at WKT. But you insisted on believing that the delays could be recovered. You chose to believe that there was the opportunity of recovering the delays, so you dragged your feet. Now, is it because you, as a generalist, trusted the professionals too much? And you also said that if you had known, you would have given a better account. So are you saying you have learned a lesson? From hindsight, what should you have done so that you could have done it better at that time? Mr. Lai? Chairman. I don't think I should talk about any isolated incident or isolated factor. The facts and details, including details that we did not know on that day, Now when we have them, of course, we can have a different view. If later on there will be similar entrustment projects, especially of such a large scale and such a complicated kind of project, communication, supervision, and assessment, all these should be improved. I think we should look at all these again so we could do it better. On this particular incident, with regard to the reports of the two independent bodies, my understanding is that the Highways Department and the MTRCL are communicating better, including the details to be included in reports from the MTRCL to the Highways Department, and also their assessment of progress and difficulties. I think they are now trying to quantify them so that they are stated in a clearer manner. This is, of course, a result of the lesson learned. Later on, if there will be similar entrustment projects, I believe these would be the essential components. Ms. Mo, I'd like to refer to para 8 of the PS opening remarks. He said that at that meeting, the basis was that the government and the MTRCL would discuss in good faith, and again he put the term good faith in Chinese in parentheses. Is it his interpretation that the government had good faith going into the meeting, or is it that good faith collapsed during the meeting? I think Mr. Gary Fan asked the same question. Sorry, I missed it. Chairman, if you would allow me, I can answer it again. I'll just be brief. Yes. At the beginning of the meeting, I said I should add something. I should put back the English term good faith. I put the Chinese term in parentheses because I drafted the remarks in English. And I did not know whether, if it was directly translated into Chinese, whether it would be readily comprehensible. I'm sorry about causing you that speculation. I did not intend any irony. Ms. Claudia Mo. Lastly, para 10.3, you said that this is a concession approach, and this is the first time ever. And you gave a lot of reasons that financially this would be more in the government's interest. But then in point 3, you mentioned in passing that it was easier, or the government would also be in a better position to liaise with the mainland authorities over issues such as the allocation of train paths and co-location of boundary control facilities. Now, of course, co-location is a political issue. It has nothing to do with this committee. But even if there were no granite, no delay at WKT, it could not help because the co-location issue is being disputed. No matter how ready you are, it could not be commissioned. Can you give us more information? What were your understanding at that time about co-location of boundary control facilities? I think Ms. Mo should be referring to para 9. Chairman, as Ms. Mo said, co-location, as I understand it, is not within the scope of this committee, but I can say briefly that co-location of boundary control facilities is taken up very diligently by the mainland authorities and the SAR government. It involves a very complicated operational and legal arrangements. Once we have a clearer indication of how we can do it, we will give an account to the public and LegCo as soon as possible. The discussion is underway. Thank you, Mr. Chen Hanpan.
I would like to talk about the three-tier monitoring mechanism. Just now, the PS has already referred to the checker arrangement. I want to know if you think that it is very indirect. For the contractor has spotted the loophole. This is because the MTRCL is merely the sort of supervisor. It is not the one paying the bill. It is not the employer. So it's a matter of being the middleman. And there are the claims and there is a delay. Now for works projects, negotiation and consultation would be necessary. So PS, do you think that the MTRCL cannot play its role? Mr. Tan, sorry, I'm Chen. Sorry for Mr. Chen Hangpeng's question. He said that the MTRCL was not able to play its role. Well, I have this to say. According to the entrustment agreement, the MTRCL has its duties clearly spelled out. Paragraph 15 of my statement has said that it has to provide project management service to the government, and it shall be carried out with the skill and care reasonably expected of a professional and competent project manager. So our expectation is clear, our requirement is clear, and we also expect the MTRCL to meet this requirement. I've said that it wasn't able to play its role because the contractors knew that the MTRCL would not be paying the bill. The MTRCL wasn't the boss. So for directives, the directives will come from the government. And for the contractors to apply for claims because of the delay, well, the contractor may want to defer the project, the contractor may want to apply for a claim. So what is the role of the MTRCL? The MTRCL would not be very positive in its role. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your question. For the existing mechanism, and in fact, in our papers submitted to the RSC, this has been referred to from time to time. For the claims, now the MTRCL has to be the gatekeeper at the first instance. The MTRCL must be satisfied that the claim itself is justified, and that is the amount claimed must be agreed by the MTRCL before it is forwarded to the government. Therefore, in this process, the MTRCL has a very clear role as the project manager. That is, regarding the claims, it has to play the role of a gatekeeper. And that's why, just a moment ago, I have asked you to refer to paragraph 15 of my statement. That is the work to be expected of the MTRCL. In a case of slippage, and if the MTRCL is to implement delay recovery measures, Some of them will be initiated by the MTRCL itself, others might have come from the contractors. In any event, the DRMs must come under the 3-tier monitoring system, and MTRCL must look at it itself internally. The Highways Department must also agree that it is effective, and the financial implications must be known before there can be the go-ahead. The MTRCL itself can't go it alone. If I may continue, I said that it's too indirect as a arrangement. Is there a way for the government to become clearly aware of the progress? Would it be possible for the government to understand that the claims are justifiable? You always have to rely on the MTRCL's information. What about your own monitoring work? Is there a way for you to find out about the matter directly? For the contractors, well, in Hong Kong, there are lots of construction activities. Contractors are short of manpower. And please tell us whether it is possible for you to have direct supervision. Now, it may very well be the case that you tell everybody that you have to beat the deadline in 2017, and so if there are claims to be submitted, then they will be handled expeditiously. Do you think that you are sort of dealing with it reluctantly? Mr. Chairman, first of all, regarding the claims, as I have said, at the front line, the MTRCL, as the project manager, has the responsibility to vet their claims, to find out whether they are justified and whether the amount claimed is reasonable before forwarding it to the Highways Department. The Highways Department, during its day-to-day work, will rely on the 3-tier mechanism of meetings. In addition, it has got its own staff and has got the MMV consultant who will pay such visits. For the DRMs, as to whether they will certainly be approved, and at the time of approval, as to whether there are terms and conditions and what will be considered before giving approval, well, the Director of Highways earlier on attended your hearings twice, and I understand that he has already explained the matter, so I'm not going to repeat the details. Again, the Highways Department plays a gatekeeping role as to how the DRMs are to be implemented, what can be improved, and liaising with other departments. Say, for example, relocating the facility in Jordan Road. I understand that it has had a lot of liaison with the Transport Department. So this is the routine work of the Highways Department. It is not passive, and I don't think it is a matter of reluctance. But still, between the Highways Department and the project manager, that is the MTRCL, there is a division of work. When it comes to the final details, of course, it is a fact that each has a different level of knowledge. You haven't resolved my problem. How can the government make sure that the MTRCL will be positive and hardworking in making sure that the contractor will do the work? Because the MTRCL is not the boss, the MTRCL is not paying the bill. Now you simply attend the meetings and you're not able to issue directives. So for this 3-tier monitoring mechanism, I want to know whether it renders the government unable to manage the project directly. Mr. Chairman, to answer Mr. Chen's question, of course, the government, the Highways Department in particular, does not manage the project directly. It should be the project manager. The government won't do the work of the project manager. The project manager is the MTRCL, yes, right. So we won't be doing the work which should be rightly performed by the MTRCL. And that's the spirit of the entrustment agreement. The project management has been entrusted with the MTRCL. On the basis of what I have referred to, in paragraphs 12 to 15, I have listed out the duties of the MTRCL under the EA. If the MTRCL has not performed well in terms of its obligations, they have the legal liability. And I'm sure the MTRCL is clearly aware of its duties. Next, Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen. Mr. Chairman, first of all, for the EA2 Entrustment Agreement 2, I think there's an overlapping of the roles of the MTRCL and the government. The government is the major shareholder of the MTRCL. As we have said in the past, there will be problems and conflicts when it comes to monitoring and implementation, and the public will query that. So for EA2, as you have referred to in paragraphs 13 and 14, you have given some explanation to paragraph 13. You have told us that it is a matter of cause and result. What about the meaning of paragraph 14? Should there be a delay, and to the extent that the delay in question is not covered by any modification or adjustment? Now, what is meant by any modification or adjustment to the entrustment program? It may amount to a breach of the MTRCL's obligations under the EA2, and the government may have a claim against MTRCL for such a breach. We don't know what warrants have been given. I don't think we have got a third EA. So what is meant here? Because should there be a delay in breach of the MTR, in breach of any of its warranties? Well, it seems that it's quite meaningless for that statement. Well, please explain what you mean in that sentence of that paragraph in your statement. I try to explain the matter on the face of the meaning of that sentence as to how the government understands the terms and conditions of the agreement, and as to how the MTRCL understands the terms of the agreement. I think it will become something very basic in future actions. Of course, you don't speak on behalf of the government. You are at most tendering your personal understanding. No, I don't want to get your understanding. I just want to know about the terms and conditions. Please give us the meaning of the sentence. Paragraph 14 and paragraph 15. First of all, paragraph 15. Well, it is a warranty. The MTRCL, as to the party given the entrustment, the MTRCL must carry out the work with the skill and care reasonably expected of a professional and competent project manager. In other words, what an average project manager can do and reasonably expected of one, then the MTRCL should do the same. So it is a matter of coordination, administration, management. and supervision of the design and construction of works. So such a warranty applies.
做唔到呢個
If the project manager cannot deliver that warranty, government may have a claim against the MTR. As I said, Chairman, how this clause can be invoked, whether it is the clause that should be invoked, all these will be considered when we consider making a claim against the MTRCL. What about para 14, modifications or adjustment? To the extent that the delay is not covered by any modification or adjustment to the entrustment program. What do you mean? To what extent? Chairman, this is my own understanding. I must reiterate, this is my own understanding, and I have not sought legal advice on this. And that is, if there is a delay under the entrustment program, there is an entrustment program under the agreement. In simple terms, let's say commissioning in 2015. So if there is any delay, and number one, we all understand that in any project of a large scale, delay is not uncommon. As long as the entrusting party and the entrusted party and parties concerned agree, that date can be changed. What is meant here is, I believe, there is a delay, but the delay does not occur with both parties' consent, because the government and the MTRCL can agree on a delay, but that delay would be delay consented to by the parties under the entrustment agreement. But here, there is no government consent to the delay in question, and the government can then make a claim against the MTRCL. This is my personal understanding of this clause. Yeah, Chairman. Para 14 is also in English, and I think the English is clearer. And as he was saying, whether it's a delay with the consent of both parties or a delay that is not agreed to by both parties. Yes, I will ask a further question on the delay, Chairman. Once you give consent to any delay, you would undermine yourself and your own position in making future claims. Every time you agree to a delay, it would affect the government's position to make claims. I think you have answered a question before, but I'd like to ask a supplementary on it, and that is with regard to the meeting of the 21st of November 2013. I'm quite worried because it seems here you have agreed to that delay. However, there are things that you don't agree to, but you did not explain. You said just now that you would give them another 6 months for them to try to recover the delay. And also it is said that if it was announced too early, then the contractors would not work at full steam. And you also said that you could not totally rule out that commissioning could be in 2015. So you agreed to it. However, this is not exactly the account you gave. And in that account, you said that the MTRCL had always said just one thing, and that is in 2015 you can have a single track operation, but you said you did not accept it. So the MTRCL said there could be commissioning, but it would be in a mode not acceptable to government. So why do you say that still you could not rule out commissioning in 2015 since the mode proposed is not acceptable to you? So, Chairman, do you get what I mean? Because to me, you never accepted or agreed that commissioning could be in 2015. I think it is a little confusing here. The MTRCL already proposed the partial opening scenario. Since it was not acceptable, why do you still think that commissioning could take place as scheduled in 2015? Chairman, I think Mr. Lee and the Chairman are asking two different questions. One is on partial opening of WKT. Two, single track operation. I'll answer the second point first because it is a simpler one. Single track operation was first mentioned in that meeting. Why the MTRCL mentioned it at that meeting? It was because we repeatedly queried whether the tunnel could be completed as scheduled. And we told it categorically, once this was mentioned, that it was unacceptable. And then in the ensuing discussion at the meeting, and also afterwards, in the follow-up work between the MTRCL and the Highways Department, the basis was the same, and that is there would be no single-track operation. Both tubes of the tunnel should be commissioned. On that day, we agreed to give the MTRCL another 6 months for it to try to recover delay for the entire project. It was clear that the basis for so doing was to have both tubes commissioned. There is no confusion whatsoever. This was very clear. The single-track operation only was with the meeting for 1 minute, 2 minutes, and it was dismissed. But since we thought that you would want to know what was discussed at the meeting, so we included this detail. Well, if this is what you are saying, then there is a problem. In other words, you have ruled out that option. This is very clear. You voted down the single-track operation. But then the question is, that was the most the MTRCL could offer. And I'm just reading it out here. THB asked why MTRCL remained of the view that the XRL could be completed and commissioned in 2015. MTRCL said that it was trying hard to identify solutions to meet this target. At the very least, single-track operation was possible. So this is what they said, at the very least. In other words, it should not have been able to convince you that commissioning was possible. It seemed you just took it lightly, and in fact you were hiding things together with the MTRCL, because the MTRCL said that at the very least single-track operation was possible. And why did you choose to believe that commissioning was possible? Can you answer briefly, Mr. Lai? Chairman, I was at that meeting, and in fact I chaired the meeting, so I'm very clear what happened on that day, and I can tell you very clearly that the single-track operation was dismissed right there. And then the entire meeting was based on both tubes being commissioned at the same time. The MTRCL asked for 6 more months so that it could try to recover delay on that basis. Chairman, that was clear. I'd like to clarify something. It was not my question and Mr. Lee's question. I was summarizing Mr. Lee's question. Can I please follow up? A very brief one. Okay. I think this is unacceptable in that you now tell us it was dismissed right away, and then the ensuing discussion was on the basis of both tubes being commissioned. But what made you think that they could do it? The MTRCL itself was offering a lesser solution. And you ruled that out, and then the other party said delay could be recovered within 6 months. But on what basis did you trust the MTRCL that it could actually do it? Mr. Lai, please be very brief. Chairman, if you would refer to the minutes, but not exactly the minutes, but a summary. If you would refer to para 19, it says MTRCL said once the cross-boundary tunneling works are completed and the tunnel boring machine had crossed to and started works on the Hong Kong side, they would be in a better position to assess the situation and catch up with the delay as soon as possible. MTRCL requested the government give them 6 more months before making a judgment on whether XRL could be completed by 2015. In simple terms, Chairman, this was our consideration on that day. Next member. Our second round. Mr. Michael Tian, do you have a question? Chairman, actually, my questions had been asked, and there is one thing I like to ask about now. This entire thing happened because of what the government said at the RSC meeting in November 2013. There were signs saying that they needed 6 more months before they could have an opportunity of catching up with the delay. And the way they put it was they were not confident to have commissioning in 2015, but given 6 more months, it could give the pledge. So you decided to give them another 6 months. We can understand that. But or is it that they already said clearly at the meeting that if they were given 6 more months, there would be an enhancement of the opportunity of securing this? Was it an assurance? Could I know clearly how the MTRCL put it on that night? Mr. Lai, if you would allow me, let me read out a paragraph, which is very brief. And it was the basic facts of the meeting on the 21st of November 2013. The government asked what the MTRCL could do and whether it would still look at a commissioning date of 2015, since there should be testing and trial runs after commissioning, and we would have to ensure safety before commissioning would be allowed. The MTRCL said that they would do their very best. And we quoted in English, best endeavor, in order to achieve the 2015 target. So, Chairman, this was the record of the meeting, right? My impression, my memory also tells me that. In other words, they needed 6 months, hoping to recover the delay so that as much as possible, commissioning would be possible in 2015. But to our understanding, this is their best endeavor. Can you provide the minutes? Well, actually, it is included in my written statement. It is in Annex 2. Actually, the Annex to Appendix 2. Appendix 2 is a letter from the THB to the Secretariat of the Legislative Council, dated the 15th of May 2014, and appended to that letter is the record of this meeting. Okay, I'd like to know more. By best endeavor, are they talking about achieving the 2015 target, or are they talking about the 6 months? the 2015 target, Chairman. Okay, then I'd like to ask you, if someone tells you that by 2015 and 2015 they would very much hope that commissioning will be possible,
would you then likely that subjectively you added another 6 months and then you talked about January or September 2016 would be the commissioning date? Now, if somebody says as much as possible or hopefully, then I will be worried. When both have been said, that is, they hope as much as possible, then it will be even more worrying. So I want to know whether all their body language showed that they lacked confidence. And at first they had offered the option of single-track operation. They sat down and first of all they offered the single-track operation in the middle of the meeting. Yes, they offered a single-track operation. Later on in the negotiation, it was a double-track operation. But of course, they hoped as much as possible. Since you had given them a no, so they could only say yes, but then the condition was that they hoped as much as possible. And then, given this, and then on the following day, you yourself added 6 more months and said that you will be fine. I will have to point out that you have always been very cautious, and it is not in line with your style in the government. 22nd of November, the government briefed the RSC. On the one hand, what the government said was that we did not rule out the possibility of commissioning in 2015. On the other hand, we gave some room to the MTRCL, hoping that they could try to recover the delay in 6 months' time so that they could achieve the commissioning target. That's the consideration behind our statement on that day. Of course, earlier on, we also said that had we announced at the 22nd November meeting that we were not able to beat the deadline, that is, if the MTRCL was to give such a statement, then the contractors might slow down. And it was indeed one of the factors considered by us on that day. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Tian? Mr. Chairman, I used to have some experience with railway systems. I can understand that the MTRCL was in a dilemma. Had the MTRCL been upfront, contractors would say that 2 more years would be given, and then they could slow down in trying to recover the delay. And that's why you named the date so as to put pressure on the contractors. Usually, when there is a margin of error, then you can resort to such an approach. In other words, your judgment is that it is possible to press for this to be done. But of course, it comes with a price. You can't deny, and you can't forget that you can buy a lot of things with more money. Had you told them earlier, another $20 billion might make it come true. So at that time, you would like to exert pressure on them. So at that time, did you think that there was no need for supplementary agreements, there was no need for supplementary provision, and still the job could be done? Of course, it is sort of a digression, but I just want to find out more about it. Now, throughout, we haven't talked about the cost. At our meetings, we have seldom talked about cost, but usually when it comes to the construction of railway projects, more money could have been useful. like doubling the money. Well, it is within our scope. You have been telling them 2015, 2016. Did you ever talk about the price to be paid for a different target date? The MTRCL is merely the entrusted party. The MTRCL didn't underwrite everything, so extra money has to come from the electrical. At the meeting on the 21st, we didn't proceed to talk about the financial arrangements. In accordance with the established mechanism, since the MTRCL would like to be given 6 more months from November onwards to let them try to catch up. At the time, the idea was to give them time up to May 2014. According to the established mechanism, if they need more manpower, more equipment, and of course, according to Mr. Tian's words, it would have required more money. According to the mechanism, well, first of all, we need to find out about the measures involved, the specific measures involved, and then how much it would cost. For such things, at the meeting held on the 21st, there was no detailed discussion. At that time, at least for my part, as the chair of that meeting, our expectation, or my expectation, was that after the meeting, MTRCL should come up with a comprehensive plan for the Highways Department based on the prevailing three-tier system between the MTRCL and the Highways Department. So further talks would be needed. Mr. Chairman, allow me to spend another minute. The more I see it, the more problems I've identified. For that meeting in that evening, I think it is totally unprofessional. Our understanding is that you sat down and then MTRC said single track operation, you said no, and you should be double track operation, and then MTRC said that they would try their best, and then on the following day you added 6 more months. So throughout, no one mentioned the cost issue. If you didn't mention cost, you didn't mention the money, then it would not have been possible. On the following day, the government came to the electrical. I want to know whether the timetable the government had in mind was based on the original $60 billion or so. Now, if you haven't mentioned cost, then the MTRCL would have said that, yes, I said yes, because I was expecting $20 billion more, and then they would present the bill to you. How come that throughout you didn't ask them when they said they hoped to try their best to do it, whether it was within the originally approved budget or whether it was something else? Well, it takes time to develop an issue. It is not right to say that the government at that time didn't think about the cost or didn't think about it afterwards. If you have, did you ever mention the word money? Mr. Chairman, as I have said, at that meeting, we didn't talk about the financial issue. This is because if we were to have extra measures, which measures and how much they would cost, well, what should have been done was that after the meeting, we worked through the established mechanism. For that meeting, we had to deal with a more fundamental issue, that is, whether we could commission the service in 2015 or not. Well, in fact, if we couldn't commission in 2015, it might have involved more money. It wasn't a matter of if we could beat it. But exactly, if we couldn't commission in 2015, then it would certainly result in cost overrun. If we are able to commission in 2015 on the basis of what they said that evening, and given so much slippage, then equally you would have incurred more expenditure to catch up. So I cannot understand why throughout the government, at least in the government, haven't raised this point. Please be more succinct. Well, whatever the scenario will be, we need to deal with the potential issue of extra cost. But then, on that evening, the urgent issue was what to say to the public, what to say to the electrical, whether it was unlikely that there could be commissioning in 2015. If it was unlikely, it should be announced. If not, if it was likely, then we should state in such a way that the contractors will be motivated to try. Mr. Chairman, I think at that evening meeting, no mention was made of money, and you didn't sort of give a price tag as to why they said they were able to do it. I think in terms of monitoring, this is unprofessional. Have it put on record, please. Mr. Tian, please do not leave. Last time at our hearing, you examined the witness. You referred to a photograph or a plan. Has it come from CB bracket 4 611/14-15 bracket 2 page 4? Yes. 4 members have put down their names to ask questions in the second round. Mr. Lai, I'm afraid I have to take up a bit more of your time so that you don't have to come back next time. Wu Chi-Huai, Gary Fan, Li Chet-Yen, and Tony Che. 3 minutes each. Mr. Wu. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Permanent Secretary has always been saying that for the meeting held in the evening of the 21st of November, you said eventually you agreed to trust the MTRCL that it would be completed in 2015 and 6 months will be given for testing. You have said that the basis for saying this was that had you not done that, the contractors would slow down. Please elaborate. Between the contractors and the MTRCL, there is a contractual relationship. There's also a target completion date, and I believe that it is the same as that in the entrustment agreement. That is 2014. Why did you say that they would be more relaxed? Now, other than the political appointees, I want to know which of you were present and had a professional background. And then for the Director of Highways, what about his railway experience? I think at that time he had at most 2 to 3 years railway experience. You have only got a minute and a half. For the list of attendees, you can find the information in the annex to my paper with the Director of Highways, Director of Electrical and Mechanical Services. Well, at that meeting, as to why we said that workers or contractors might not be doing their utmost. Well, the way I see it is that if you make a public announcement saying that the date will be pushed back, then the other side would very well say that they can do it slowly. But then there is a contractual relationship, right? Mr. Chairman, allow me to come back to this point. I think earlier on, Mr. Tian has also said that he was aware that this could be possible, speaking from his capacity of someone who had experience in railway projects. For the professional attendees there, Highways Department or MTRCL, well, they told me that this would indeed be the case in the industry. At that time, I had to rely on the information and messages that I received. So, Mr. Chairman, does it mean that the agreement will also have the date pushed back? That is the 4th of August 2015. So it means that at least push back to end of 2015 and then another 6 to 9 months for testing?
好啊，主席簡單答法就係、
Mr. Lai, please answer the question because I haven't seen the papers. Yes, Chairman. If the MTRCL and the government agreed to a new exact date, under the law, if both agreed, we had to enter a variation. We had to vary the agreement. Next member, Gary Fan. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Lai. On the 15th of April 2014, there was a media meeting with the MTRCL. It is said that because of the black rainstorm, it is said that the TPM was damaged, and so there was a delay. And then in the first report of the IBC, the MTRCL was criticized as saying that it had exaggerated the damage of the TPM. I'd like to ask about the 44th meeting of the PSC held on the 2nd of April 2014. Did the MTRCL report to government the extent of damage to the TPM under contract Pt2? And also after the media briefing, did you review the 44th meeting so that you could make an assessment of the TPM damage and how it would impact on contract Pt2 so that it would be as serious as pictured by the MTRCL? Mr. Lai, Chairman, please give me a moment. Chairman, with the information I have with me, at the PSC meeting on the 2nd of April 2014, the MTRCL said that with regard to contract Pt2 there was flooding, the TPM was flooded, and the contractor at that time, I believe they were talking about the 2nd of April, was assessing the damage done to the TPM. The Highways Department required the MTRCL to give the results of the detailed investigation as soon as possible and also to assess the impact on cost and also progress. So on the 2nd of April, it only said that there was flooding, and it did not say anything about the serious damage as it had said on the 15th of April, so that there would be serious delay resulting. Did the MTRCL say anything and those details? Mr. Lai, Chairman, from what information I have with me now, to answer Mr. Gary Fan, no. Okay, no. I already told you with what information I have with me. So the MTRCL only told you something was flooded and there was damage. And the Highways Department required it to do a very detailed report with also an impact on progress and cost. And the detailed report was not submitted to you before it met the media on the 15th of April. Yes or no? Chairman, I don't have the information at hand. Can you let us know afterwards? Yes. The clerk, you will follow up. And also when the report was submitted to you. Yes, okay. Mr. Lee Chak-yen. Chairman, I read the entire record of that meeting. That is your meeting with the MTRCL. You asked 3 times whether it had confidence. And you also said repeatedly that it should not overstate its ability to overcome difficulties, and also what measures would be taken to recover delay. So from beginning to end, you had no confidence. That was the impression you gave me. And the MTRCL was not telling you exactly how it could recover delay. It only said one thing, and that is they had to pressurize the contractors. So I think your confidence was built on quicksand. And P.S. please do some soul searching. I think you did not have confidence on that day because that was what the record of the meeting showed. And another question, if you say no, you actually had confidence, then my question for you is, apart from what the MTRCL said that they would make their best endeavor, now, apart from that, on what basis did you have confidence? You said there were a few levels of monitoring. You had monthly meetings and with the Highways Department. But did any professional monitor tell you that you could have confidence because there was a chance of a recovering delay? So, Mr. Lai, is it that you had no confidence? But if you had confidence, on what basis did you have that confidence? Thank you, Chairman and Mr. Lee, for that question. It was not easy to arrive at that judgment on that day because this involved complicated engineering works and whether delay could be recovered. There was also this consideration, if indeed it was announced. Now, I have heard members' views today and whether it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. That was also an important consideration. And what happened on that day was that the MTRCL said it would make their best endeavor to achieve the target and asked us for 6 more months. And then they said things would clear up given the 6 months. Of course, we did not want to give up that opportunity lightly. And in fact, the government team on that day did not receive the message that the opportunity equaled 0, and that on the next day we should announce that MTRCL would definitely not be able to catch up with the progress. That was not the message we were getting. So we agreed that 6 more months would be given to the MTRCL to try to do its best. In other words, you accepted whatever the MTRCL told you. You said nobody said the opportunity was 0. But did anyone tell you that the assessment was 90%, that the MTRCL could not recover the delay? Because you accepted everything that the MTRCL said. It would amount to condoning or even conspiracy with the MTRCL. Chairman, when we talk about very complicated works projects, we can only rely on and also defer to professional people, including those at the MTRCL and within government. These people are monitoring the project every day, and they should be in the best position to gauge the progress of the project. We must assume that they were in the know, or else the discussion would not be scientific. But then even the Director of Highways was not confident that commissioning would be able to take place in 2015. That's a comment. The last questions from the Deputy Chairman. According to para 11 of the statement of Mr. Lai, it is said that the government representatives were already monitoring and protecting the interests of the government, including doing sample checking to see whether to verify delivery of the requirements of the project scope and authorized expenditure. I'd like to ask, from the start of the project until April 2014, when you announced delays, did you act according to risk assessment? How many risk assessments did you do? Can you give me the information? That's the first question. Secondly, Mr. Lai, when did you confirm that progress could not be recovered? And on what basis did you arrive at that view? Mr. Lai, Chairman, how risk assessment was done, this would be very professional and technical. I'm afraid I cannot answer that question. So you did sample monitoring, a risk-based sampling approach. If I remember correctly, I think the Director of Highways provided similar information to members. But if Mr. Chair, you are interested, I can go back and ask the Highways Department to give you a written reply. No, I'd like you to give me more information about the risk-based sampling approach. Second question. Mr. Chair, I think you were asking me when you yourself. For me, it was in the week of the 12th and the 13th of April. In the weekend, when the STH got the message from Mr. J. Walder and also the chairman of the MTRCL. So you were satisfied that the target of 2015 could not be reached, and you followed that view. Well, the message was very clear then. The MTRCL said it was impossible to achieve that target date. Chairman, Mr. Lai said that they were satisfied that the MTRCL had confidence in achieving the target date of 2015 and the MTRCL's assurances. But as I heard, you did not require the MTRCL also to give assurances about keeping to the cost estimate. I can't understand why. Is it that you were allowing it to complete the project regardless of any cost overrun? Chairman, I'd like to clarify. I did not say anything like that. I did not even say anything similar to that. I only said that on the 21st of November, at that meeting, we in fact did not talk about extra costs. We were not talking about cost overrun per se. But then I expected that after the meeting, when we discussed the DRMs, we should also clearly discuss how much extra cost will be required and whether there would be cost overrun. Chairman, I think I need to clarify and say that again. Okay, I'd like to follow up on this question. In the week of the 12th and 13th of April 2014, you knew from Mr. J. Walder that there would not be the meeting of the target by 2015. When you got the news, did you regard it as expected or something out of expectation? Chairman, in fact, it was not Mr. J. Walder who told me. Well, but you got the message. The message was from Mr. J. Walder. Yes. The message from Mr. J. Walder was not just about non-commissioning. It was also about commissioning only in 2017. I think to me and to colleagues in the Bureau, it was a surprise. What? Surprise. A surprise. Okay, thank you. We thank you very much, Mr. Lai, for attending the Select Committee and assisting us in our work. If necessary, we'll invite you to another hearing. We hope that will not be the case. You can now excuse yourself. Can I ask a very short question, a really very short one? Just like to confirm what I asked just now. Originally, the EA should terminate on the 4th of August 2014. When you said on the 22nd of November 2013, you said works would be completed by end 2015 and there would be 6 to 9 months for test and trial runs. Does it amount to a consent by both parties that the agreement has been extended? No. No, there was no consent by both parties that the EA would be extended. Because on that day, first of all, no one could say when completion or commissioning would take place. If it could have been ascertained, I can tell you frankly that our attitude would be very different, would have been very different on the 22nd of November. In fact, in the agreement, now of course this did not come to pass, at least it has not come to pass. If there is something that is agreed upon, say for example a new date, then we will have to agree upon it And then according to the terms of the EA, we would have to put in a new date. But this has not been done even until today. Right, you have not come to a consent as to varying the contract or agreement. Okay, thank you again, Mr. Lai. Thank you, Chairman. The next hearing will take place on the 2nd of June at 9:15 in the morning in the same venue, room 3. Members, please go to room 2B for our closed meeting. Thank you.